All right. Let's see. How are we going to intro this?
We're not going to scream?
You want to scream?
I kind of do.
Do it.
My staff here is going to be crazy. Okay. And I'm introducing your podcast?
Do whatever you want. Whatever you do, I'll
All right! Welcome to Forte Catholic Taylor strolling. Oh, okay. That's the best I got.
Did you forget your name?
I was trying to be you. I don't know. I'm Father Brad Doyle.
Well, it's just funny that like you said it's Taylor Schroll and then you stopped like you didn't know who the guest was. Like you're the guest.
That's true. I must have forgot myself. I'm trying to be last, you know.
Yeah, there you go. You're very holy in this Lent. So it's a strange intro for a strange podcast in a strange time. That's what we are doing today. It's a bonus episode of the podcast with Father Brad Doyle, who just yelled and freaked out his entire staff, which like when I yell, I record at my house. No one's freaked out by this because not only do I record the show once a week, but I just yell like this randomly around my house. Sometimes at people, sometimes just, regularly.
Absolutely. Your family's like, oh, Dad's doing okay.
Right, yeah.
On the right side of the bed.
I'm finally quiet, and they're like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Something isn't going right. So, okay, so we literally just had a conversation on Twitter an hour ago, and this is going out in 2 hours. So this will be the fastest produced Forte Catholic podcast of all time because it went from idea to sliding into your DMs to recording to published in about 3 hours.
I would have it nothing else but that, man. I love that. I love the ideas, keeping it fresh. You got to keep the idea fresh.
So, okay, it's all around one thing. We'll get to that, but first I want to talk about how you and I met. So we had followed each other on Twitter for a while, but at the SLS conference this winter, because winter is a thing that exists outside of Texas and Louisiana, where you are.
Yeah.
We were at the SLS conference. Both of us recorded our podcast there, and what happened with all the podcasts is we all just kind of listened to everybody else's. Like most people were there for most of the shows, and I met you. And you were sitting in chairs in a semicircle around the podcast. So I kind of felt like we were the disciples sitting at the feet of Jesus, except instead of Jesus, it was strange podcasters in a van. Did that connect with you at all?
No, yeah. I felt a little bad at first for not going to any of the talks. Or we were just kind of hanging out and spending it as a vacation, led by Father Harrison Ayer. He was there every time, didn't go to a single thing. And so I didn't feel bad anymore.
Yeah, and there you were. He looked like a nice little grandma most of the time, and he had these huge blankets over him. I think I remember you having a blanket over you at some point as well.
I did.
So I met you there, and I was like, oh yeah, I know you from Twitter. And very quickly, you and I were I was like, wait, you're a priest here, and you're there. I'm like, Father, I grew up where you've been not grew up, but I grew up going to. All my family's from Baton Rouge, and the parishes that you've worked in and currently work in are right all around where I spent Christmases and Easters and summer breaks and spring breaks. So it's weird that we have this strange connection.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, I don't know if you remember, we played on the playground together. We played basketball against each other. I stuffed you and packed you, and you cried.
I did, and then the next week I broke your arm, and I actually wanted to come on and apologize for that right now.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this now, and it's all coming back to me, so I forgive you for that.
Well, thank you. That's very Lenten of you, and I'm very proud. You're a great model of Jesus as you are in his person. Okay, so that's kind of how we met, and it was strange because I was like, wait, and I had to look up the name of the parish because I went there for every other Christmas, so I couldn't remember the name of the parish, and then I showed you. Or you were here's a picture. And I'm like, that's it. Mm-hmm. It's so strange. So, but the reason we are talking today, this whole virus thing is freaking everybody out. And both this bonus episode and this week's episode later on this week are yes, we acknowledge that it is happening, but the whole point of this show is to make Catholicism fun again, to bring joy back into people's lives. And here we are in this very stressful time. So yes, we are acknowledging that it is happening. And we're going to talk about very dumb things in order to help everyone escape from the stress of all this. Not saying that things that you say are dumb, Father. That's my job. You get to be the light in the darkness.
Absolutely. And look, there's nothing that I love better than sitting around and thinking about ridiculous things, especially when I have time to. And right now, as you know, everyone knows, there's some places public masses are closed down. We have the obligation lifted. My high school, I'm a chaplain at a high school, and that's closed down. So I literally was just sitting down, just scrolling through Twitter, and you said something about going to mass or saying mass in space. And I said, I volunteer.
Yeah, there you go. And it's funny because no other day would this work. You're a priest. We all know how busy priests' lives are. I have like 18 jobs. So like, but everything has been canceled. That's the only way we were like, hey, what are you doing right now? Cool. Let's record a podcast.
I feel like all the podcasters are going to have way more content over the next couple of weeks. So
for sure. Okay. So here's how this all started. Because we have all this free time, and I'm finally caught up with work stuff because I've had all this free time to stay at home and actually get work done, because I get more work done at home than I do at work. I've these strange thoughts keep popping into my head, and I've been able to think about the strange things, like the normal things in my head, and not work things where I have to be more serious. So here was one. I heard somebody say they weren't sure if they were going to be a priest or not. So it was on a podcast. Somebody was talking about their discernment story. It was a priest who is currently a priest who was talking about his discernment story. And he said priest or not, as in priest or not a priest. And I heard priest or not, like astronaut, you know? And so I tweeted this out. It's really dumb. I was like, I pictured an ordained man going to space. And as you said a moment ago, you're just like, I volunteer. I always wanted, I always said, I just noticed your typo. I'd want to be the first to stay mass in space. I misread it just now, which is funny because I read it perfectly earlier. So I always said I want to be the first to say mass in space. So how long have you been thinking about this, saying mass in space?
Okay, so this is the story about that. I took a pilgrimage to Mexico to a mountain called Pico de Orizaba. It's like the third largest peak in the Northern Hemisphere. And a bunch of college students. Also went with my cousin I've gone a couple times. And I said mass like at very high elevations. So at 14,000 feet, I said a mass at like 16,000 feet, which is like higher than anything in the United States. So like, I mean, and those are 14ers are like the top of the mountain. This was just on the side. Like we slept at 14,000 feet. And so I kept thinking about like, what is the most extreme places a guy has said mass? You know, like all these different, like how high, like what elevation is the record mass said, you know? I mean, it might be, I mean, it's not 16,000. It's gotta be a little higher than that. But like, I was thinking, one day I want to go to Everest Base Camp, 18,000 feet and say mass. You know, my friends are thinking about going to Nepal and trying to do that. And I thought to myself, one day some priest is going to go into space and say mass. And I want to volunteer for that thing. So that's how it came up in my head.
So it's one of two things, and maybe a combination of both. Is it exciting for you because it's uncharted territory and it's something that nobody's ever done before, or so that you can say, I was the first? How cool is that? Which is it, or both?
Well, I would be lying if I said it wasn't the latter a little bit. I think it's just one of those things like, hey, if we get to another planet, we're going to have to sin. I mean, when we found out there was in the Western world, a new world, right? Like all the explorers and the missionaries and the Franciscans, and they were going to different places. They didn't know what they were going to find. And they brought priests with them, planted the flag and said the first mass in a lot of these places and brought the faith. And hey, if we go to Mars, we're going to have to bring a priest. We got to evangelize Mars. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I think so. There's evangelization and some of it is pride, which is basically my life. That's like me, you know.
And also the mission of Forte Catholic as well. Okay, so I think here's the difference, though, right? Well, maybe it isn't a difference. We do it now. It's the same and it's different. When people came to the New World, we assumed that one, there wasn't a New World, and that therefore there weren't people there because we didn't know that the New World existed, right? But now, if we're going to Mars to evangelize, I don't think there's anybody there. It's like, we think we know that. Maybe it's like the New World. And I don't know. I don't know science, which is why we're not talking about the coronavirus. But
Exactly. Well, but like Martians that need to be evangelized. I mean, that's a whole nother question about the personhood of aliens. We're not even going to get to that. We might do another podcast on that. But if there's colonies, right? If we're going there and setting stuff up, at some point there has to be a pastoral need, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I just made a strange connection because we were talking about the New World and you said Martians. I think what's going to happen is there isn't going to be life on Mars, but we're going to find life somewhere, and we're going to call them Martians even though they're not from Mars, just like we called the Indians Indians because we thought they were from India instead of Native Americans. So we're going to find people. I just never really connected the word Martians with Mars.
Oh,
But
really?
we're gonna find people from the planet that isn't a planet anymore, Pluto, and they're gonna be like native Plutonians, but we're gonna like look at that Martian.
We're gonna be very ignorant about it. We'll be like, all them Martians out there.
For sure. Okay, so we've got the reality. It's mostly because wherever there are people, there is the church, and where the church is, we need priests, right? So so we need to be saying mass in space, but there's a lot of things like just practical things that we need to talk about because who knows, if this virus continues, we might all need to move to space. So we need to think very practically. That's how I am. It's like, okay, everybody else could think the big thoughts. I'm just like, well, how are we going to do this? And like my second thought was like, look, you're never going to like spill anything because like if you like tilt a cup over, it's just going to like float out to the side. You can like grab it with the rest of the cup and you'll be fine. What are the practical things that you've thought about how will mass look different in space than it does here?
Great question. Very serious question. I think so let's start with the first one, what you just brought up. Okay. So the vessels, what does space vessels look like? It can't be a normal cup. As we all know, we've seen the movies, we've seen Apollo 13. Okay. We've seen all these movies. Liquid kind of creates this little blob, right? And so it wouldn't stay in the chalice. So we have to have like more, and look, this has precedence, okay? The Eastern Orthodox and even Byzantine, how do they receive the precious blood?
They dip.
Well, they do in tinctions, some of them, but some of them actually receive through a metal straw, like a precious metal straw. Did you know this?
I didn't know.
Yes. And they stick the metal straw into the chalice, you receive, and then you stick it into a chalice with water, then you purify the straw. And so that could be applied to space. You have like a precious metal orb with a little straw coming out of it, and it contains all of it. You just consecrate the wine in the orb so it doesn't fly everywhere. Isn't that good?
It is, but I have a follow-up question. Does everyone have their own individual straw, or are we all sharing a straw? Because that could be very problematic in these days.
No, what we're doing is we're actually going straight tratty, and you're only receiving under one species. So only the priest, celebrant, receives the precious blood.
Because you're special, because you went to school.
and then the deaconate also receives.
Oh, nice. So good. We'll only keep the virus spreading amongst the clergy. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Revenge of the laity here. Okay, so we've got a couple of practical things. Now I'm starting to think. You're like, okay, first mass in space. I'm like, first mass set upside down. Because we could do that too.
Well, what is upside down? We're in space. And this brings me to my second point. I was thinking about this earlier. What is ad orientem? You know, like the whole of ad orientem, saying mass ad orientem, like facing the rising sun, facing the east, west, north, south. It doesn't make a difference in space. And so literally, I think if we could fire off the blasters, you know how you can like fire out like,
yeah,
like keep it directed towards the sun. That would be ad orientem in a space mass. You're just looking, you're towards the sun.
We either just solved the Traddy's problem or created a whole new one. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, exactly. No, I thought it was interesting. What about this, Taylor? I'm thinking vestments. Okay, vestments in space, like these fabrics would just fly up. It would be like kind of like your hands. Hands when you don't know what to do with them and they just kind of go.
Yeah, that's from one of my favorite Will Ferrell movies. I don't know what to do with my hands during the interview.
Exactly. and so like you have to have weighted vestment that keeps the chasuble down at your side.
That's helpful. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't
Okay,
know. What you thinking? Any other thoughts, concerns?
here on the vestments thing. Here's a thing that I don't know. Maybe you do. So like like military chaplain priests,
Okay.
do they ever say mass in like military gear and not like the regular priest Catholic vestments? Are you do you know?
Well, so say if we look at pictures from like maybe Father Capone, whose cause is up for canonization, he had vestments on. I know that some priests have like their green vestments are more like military green color instead of like a bright green or an olive green. It's like almost kind of camo color vestments, but they usually still use the vestments performing sacraments unless it's like in battle, last rites. You're not going to throw on an alb, right?
Gotcha.
You're running up and maybe you have a stole real quick you throw on. But usually when you're saying mass, you're not in like a battlefield. So the military, I think, usually has vestments, even if they're a little specified.
So here's what I want, because
Okay.
you essentially gave me three avenues. There's the like all vestments. There's the like we're in battle, so you're in your military outfit, and that's not what you're supposed to say. But there's also this middle ground, right, where it's like, okay, sometimes there is like this combination between the vestments and the military things. Here's what I think you should wear for the vestments. I think we should find someone to combine the new Space Force gear with like priestly albs and vestments, to where you are like half Space Force, half priest, just like like a priest or not. Like that's the whole point of this whole thing. So like somehow I want there to be a new thing that we create, and it's vestments that are half the Space Force gear that look absolutely ridiculous. You look like a person from Tron with like traditional Catholic vestments. I think it would be amazing.
Like Fiddleback Space Force. You know what Fiddleback is like the one that's just on the front and just on the back?
I don't.
You know,
I laughed to make you feel good about yourself, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
it's the best. It's the vestments without sleeves. Like it's just on the front and just on the back.
The bib.
Like
Yeah. In case you don't spill things on you while you're eating spaghetti at the spaghetti dinner.
Oh, that's what you think about fiddlebacks. I see.
I've never heard of them. I don't even think I've ever seen one.
Oh wait, okay. I'll send you a picture later.
I just have children, and I just thought of a bib because that's what we put on our kids.
To be honest, it kind of looks like it's bigger than that, but it's like it's kind of more associated with the extraordinary form. But yeah, I mean, I think this is all just speculative and being silly, but I'm just imagining the front of the magazine. As priests, we get magazines of like vestments magazines, like Toomey and Almy and all these companies trying to sell us stuff. And we always know that these people, they never get priests to model these things. You know, like the models on a vestment magazine are never priests because they never know how to put their hands right. The guy's like got a cheesy smile. I'm like, this dude is not real. Exactly. And so I'm just imagining them trying to come up with that and put it on the front of the Almy magazine and me getting it.
Oh, I have a question though. Okay. So which is worse? These priest magazine investment companies having fake priests, or inviting priests to be a model? Which is worse?
I wish it would be like not attractive, just regular, like your pastor, a little overweight, you know, just out there. It would show us how they would fit better, you know?
Yeah. So essentially what you're saying is I should be a model for these things. A little overweight, white, large.
Hey, go ahead. If you can however you make your money, whatever your side hustle is, Taylor, I'm not going to knock you that. If you want a side hustle as a priest model, you can do it.
That'd be so funny. I might just add that to, you know, everybody. Some people complain about slashers. For people like me, I work in ministry, so I can't make enough money in one set, so I have to slash. I have to do other things. I might just put priest model at the end of it, and it'll be a joke. Only you, me, and the people that listen to this get. Everybody else will be like, "What is he talking about?"
And no one else reads to the end, so that doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's another thing that we need to talk about. You have to get delegation. So like if I'm going to go do a wedding or any kind of ministry in another diocese, so I'm incarnated into the Diocese of Baton Rouge. If I go to New Orleans, I do a wedding there, I have to send a letter of good standing to the bishop of that diocese to even have the faculties to do a mass, right? So I mean, it'll be valid, but in order for it to be legit with the law and canon law and all that, it has to be delegated. So you have to give me permission. Who do I send the letter to?
So
Like, who do I send my letter of good standing in space?
Me, I'll take it. But also,
you're the bishop. You just made yourself the bishop of space.
No, I think it's. I've heard this for forever, and I'm not sure if it's 100% true. But Orlando, since that's where they send up the spaceships from, like because everybody's being sent from there. Apparently, the Bishop of Orlando is still in control of that. So, would you send it to him? And if you did, how do you think he would receive this?
I mean, bishops receive all kinds of crazy crap. He opens up this letter. I think he just quits the day. I think he's just like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what. No, but actually you nailed it. You nailed it. That it's Orlando, because it goes from canon law too. Like wherever an expedition leaves from, that diocese that from where it left has pastoral care over wherever they land if it's not already under someone's pastoral care. So this goes. Bishop Borders was the Bishop of Orlando, who was odd limina visit, which is like all the bishops go to the Pope every 4 years. He shows up to Pope Paul VI and says, "Holy Father, I'm the Bishop of the Moon." And he was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, according to this canon law, the space shuttle left from my diocese, so I'm the Bishop of the Moon." And I don't know what he said, like if he was just like, "Okay, brother."
Yeah.
But technically, Orlando has jurisdiction over space.
Here's what I pictured his reaction as. It's like, "Sure, my son, you can be the Bishop of the Moon, but I am still your Pope of the Moon,
Pope of the universe, Vicar of Christ." Yeah. Oh, actually, he probably was like, "Yes, but I still get all of the Peter's Pence donations from the moon sent to me." Okay, exactly. We got a church to run.
Exactly. Which I mean, I'm sure astronauts make good money. I wonder, like, how many, if there have been any, like Catholic astronauts that went to the moon, and there is the dispensation. Like, if you're traveling and can't make it to mass, right? I just never thought about it being applied to someone who's on a space station for 3 months. You don't have to go to mass for 3 months. You're good.
If there was ever an application, this would be it, right? Like some people try to fudge that. They're like, "Yeah, I'm driving through." You're driving through like 3 dioceses with like 70 parishes each. You got masstimes.org. You know what this says for space on masstimes.org? Nothing. They ain't one mass until I go there and do it. So I'll put my masstimes.org mass time.
Wait, okay. Masstimes.org. Love them. They're trying to do great things. I've never gotten to a mass at the right time because of masstimes.org.
Oh, really?
It's not updated. But here's the thing. I think even if you went and got mass times on masstimes.org, and even if they were correct, what time zone is space in? Because I still think people would be late.
I think exactly. Well, that you need to know a time zone. So, like, I mean, what day is it? What day is it? You're constantly going. I mean, what feast day do I do?
It gets real confusing because it's like, is this the vigil mass for tomorrow, or is today? Is today tomorrow? I'm not sure.
I mean, you got to say a quick mass because you might fly into orbit past the date line, and you're in another day, and then you're just all messed up. You know?
You miss your Sunday obligation because you had mass on Monday.
Greenwich Mean Time, is that what it's called? It's like the Greenwich line.
Oh, yeah.
I think we should go there, or we just do the Vatican. So like whatever time zone the Vatican is in, just because home church.
There you go. I like it. I think we've solved all the world's problems today. What do you think?
Well, I think it solves Ace's problems, which is it just needs the grace. It needs grace. It needs the mass, just like we all do.
Space grace.
Wow, that's a new theological term.
that you implanted into my brain. It was incepted into me by you, Father Brad.
Thank you for bringing it to fruition.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to solve today for space? You know why there's less problems in space, Father Brad?
There is no why.
Less people. People cause problems. There are many less people in space.
I was gonna say that, but I wanted to be positive. I'm trying to be positive in this time. People are like at home. They're social distancing. I was trying to be positive.
So you can be positive. My rule is I'm just avoiding all the things that are crappy in life, but I can still make fun of people because that's kind of my shtick. So,
well, if it's your pastime, do what you do. You know, I saw this tweet, and there was a guy, and he said, you know, they suggest, whoever they is, they suggest that you follow your daily routine even if you're working from home. And he was standing in his bathroom holding on to his shower thing as if like looking like he's commuting, and he's like holding his iPhone. He's got his AirPods in. And he's just like, and so that's you. You know, if you're going to be somewhat comically cynical, then you need to keep doing that, lest you throw off the order of your household.
What I'm going to do right after we finish recording is I'm not going to tell my family that I'm done recording. I'm going to wait until they hear me stop talking, they're going to find me in our bathroom just holding the commuting thing. I don't even use a subway. I'm just going to do it because you said so, because you said that I need to do it. And we'll see who thinks I'm crazier, my kids or my wife. I think my kids would try to join me. Like they would go get chairs and try to stand to where they could grab it.
You're raising good kids. You're raising good kids. You're a good dad.
Well, thank you. You're a good dad too. You just have many more children.
True that. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, this was great. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I hope the people listening enjoyed it. Obviously, people need to go find you on Twitter. You are FR_quizzical. If you are able to spell that, you deserve to see the material. If not, you can't follow him.
That's it. That's right. It's like an entrance test to being my friend.
Exactly. And also, if you can spell that word, you can listen to his podcast, The Quizzical Papist. And we just learned today that the Pope is the Pope of all of space, and he is the light bearer of all of space grace. That is the name that I have bestowed upon him. And so
yeah, so, come check out The Quizzical Papist. It's a Catholic bar trivia, so it's like you go to bar trivia with your friends and sit down, drink a beer, and play bar trivia. Except it's over a podcast, and it's Catholic-y-ish questions. And I'm just trying to kind of like you, Taylor. It's trying to be more fun, less talking heads, less like pontificating about stuff. And I love those. I listen to those podcasts. Namely Clerical Speaking. But
I love that you said it wrong. I'm not going to edit that out.
Clerical Speaking. Look, you know why? I wish I did that on purpose, but they never get my podcast name right. They're always like the Pope Quiz Show.
The Pope quizzes you today. It's just Pope Francis quizzing people.
Exactly. So they never get it right. So Clerically Speaking, anyway. So yeah, come check us out anywhere podcasts are found.
Well, good. Hey, thanks a lot, man. It was great meeting you a couple months ago. The next time I'm in Baton Rouge, I'll stop by and attend one of your masses, and then we'll. The last thing I want to say, I do want to say one thing. I'm a Houston boy. I grew up in Houston, even though my blood's all from Baton Rouge and New Orleans. I'm 100% Cajun blood flowing through here. I'm mad that Houston isn't the diocese, because Houston sends people to space too. Why did we get the screws there?
Well, because Houston is where we communicated with, but the ship left from Orlando. So gotcha. Houston's just Houston's just running the show, but the ship left from Orlando.
Which is just such a cop-out. It's like you left from there, but if you have a problem, who are you going to call? Not Ghostbusters, Houston. We have a problem. It's not Orlando we have a problem.
That's true. We ain't letting Mickey solve our problems, man.
For sure. Mickey's closed.
We gotta look. The Astros will figure it out. They'll find some way to hack the system to get us home.
Well, I don't know if you just, like, literally this just happened. Like, of course, because we already told the story of how this is happening. Like right before we started recording, the Houston Texans just traded away the best player we've ever had in our history. And one of my friends tweeted out, and I think I just retweeted it. He was like, everybody thinks that Houston should be punished for the Astros. Well, Bill O'Brien, the Texans coach, just did it and traded away our best player ever for nothing great in return. So Houston is being punished.
Who is it? Deshaun?
No, DeAndre Hopkins just got traded to the Cardinals for a running back who is older than me and a couple of draft picks that will never get players as good as the guy we just traded.
That's rough, man. That's rough.
Oh, yeah.
But y'all still have Deshaun Watson, right? Is that what?
We do. Just no one to throw to.
He can run. I saw him in person.
But he can't hide.
That's it.
All right, Father Brad Doyle, I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll have to do this again because we tackled all the serious problems, and everyone in the world needs conversations like this.
Muy importante.
I don't know what that means. See ya.